Series, episode number 10. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. We are back in the saddle with another Better on Draft podcast. I appreciate everyone who listened to our episode. We had a special episode this week with Hedek Fenty over at Omnipoyo. Go check it out. You can subscribe to us or listen to it and find it over at facebook.com/Better on Draft or youtube.com/Better on Draft. You can check out the video. We have a great handful of guests in the studio today, but I'm going to go around and see how everyone's doing real quick and ask what they're drinking. Wendy, how's it going? What are you drinking?
Never feels I'm not paying attention when you start with me. I have started today with an embodiment from Wax Wings. This is pretty tasty, I'm not going to lie. I also have a She the Queen on deck, which I'm really excited to try.
Alrighty, next up we got Robert. How you doing? What are you drinking?
Doing all right. I am sitting here with a Pomona Plus from Wax Wings, a fruited sour. I also have on the side a drafting table unprofessional pills. They're Imperial Pilsner.
Starting to see a trend here. You might know who our guest is. Dan, what are you drinking over there?
I'm going to break the trend. Steve vodka soda going on.
Vodka soda. I got you some beer and you're drinking vodka soda?
It's a vodka soda kind of day.
All right. Nick, how are you? What are you drinking?
Just doing dandy. I too have some Wax Wings, the pulled into Nazareth. And then Dan would appreciate this one. I got Trooper 666.
Oh yeah.
Iron Maiden.
Good choice.
From Robinson's Brewery.
I'm drinking Up in the Early, which is a double match stout conditioned on El Castellan, Gesha coffee, maple syrup, and cocoa nibs. This is from Wax Wings Brewing, which is going to be our guests for today. Welcome into our virtual studio, Aaron and Rob. Rob, how you doing today?
Good. How's it going? Pretty good. Drinking a Two-Hearted.
Oh, that answers the second question of what are you drinking. The first question is, what do you do at Wax Wings?
I'm the head of brewing operations, so I do a little bit of everything.
Do a little bit of everything. We also have Aaron here. Why don't you tell us what you do over at Wax Wings and what you're drinking?
I mostly do planning and strategy with Wax Wings and kind of work hand in hand with Rob to manage everything that we're doing over here. And today I am drinking, it's Friday, so it's a Bourbon County day. My absolute favorite, so I always hit that up on Friday.
All right. Well, let's start off with the conversation because I want to talk about this beer that I'm actually drinking right now, which is Up in the Early. Talk to me about this beer. What went into the process of making this beer? And I mean, at 11%, this is definitely going to get me toasty to start off the night.
Yeah, Up in the Early has been around since kind of the onset of the brewery and exists in different iterations. We've been trying to source different ingredients as it evolves, and this was a double mash, so that's going to mean it's richer, a little higher ABV, and then we partnered with to work out this coffee thing with Green Glass Coffee. The geisha coffee that they got a hold of and roasted is just some of the best stuff we've ever tried. So we wanted to put it in some stouts this month to see how it performed.
I love how smooth it is, but it has that boozy back end. I'm always afraid of these higher ABV beers because sometimes you're very secretive with the ABV. I can't tell you how many bottles from the brewery that I've drank where I'm just tanked by the end of the 750 just because you don't taste the alcohol itself. Now, Wax Wings, you guys are focusing solely on curbside right now. Even with the change in restrictions, you guys have decided that you're not going to open up quite yet. Do you guys, what can you tell us about your plan of when you would like to reopen indoor dining over at Wax Wings?
Aaron, you want to take this one?
Yeah, as of right now, we're hoping for May 1st. That's our target date. Because things were oscillating so much with closures and restrictions, we didn't want to get caught up in that game, especially with having such a small staff, having a small tap room. It could really hurt us both safety-wise and economically to be opening and closing at will of whatever was happening at the current time with the pandemic. So we've kind of forecasted out in the hopes that things get better. And right now we're tentatively aiming for May 1st, when we can go all in, as opposed to worrying about having to close the doors again at a future time.
Yeah. All right. Before I pass it to one of my co-hosts, just we keep hearing a notification noise on someone's phone, so let's make sure we turn that off. It gets very loud, and it's shocked me a few times, and I'm sure I'm going to try to edit it out, but if I'm too lazy and I don't do it, sorry to all the listeners.
Yeah, I think that was my phone. I got it on silent now, so we're good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Robert, what's up?
All right. Actually, you kind of got into the first question I was going to ask about that reopen. And I did see it on Facebook that you guys had mentioned that May 1st date about 3 weeks ago. So based on what you're seeing now and what you're seeing with the numbers and what's going on in the state, is the outlook still looking the same, or like feeling like kind of a little like cautiously optimistic that things are still going to be going into the right direction to where you can open that day?
I think the best thing I can say is that we're cautious. I don't know about pessimistically or optimistically. You know, it's always troubling when you see the numbers going up and down. That's one of the reasons that we kind of padded ourselves and went out a couple months so that we had time to prepare. One of the things that people think is that breweries are just kind of turnkey, and you know, you can just say, well, on Monday we're going to open, but you know, you want the beer to be fresh. You want everything to be ready at the brewery, and those things just don't happen overnight. You don't want to be tapping a keg that you've had sitting around for 6 months since the last closure. You want everything to be fresh and tasting good, you know. Right. So it takes time to prepare for all of that. So I'm hoping that we do see better trends than what we're seeing right now as we enter April. But thankfully, we still do have, you know, 5 to 6 weeks before that date. And, you know, we're not fully committed to it, but that's the date that we hope to do it.
Yeah. Okay. And Rob, now I'm kind of always interested in origin stories of how people start their breweries. And what I had read was that you had your influences started by living in Boston for a little bit of a time. And I was curious about that experience of the New England beer culture that influenced you to basically come back here into Michigan and to, you know, make beer here.
Yeah, probably the reason I started a brewery, there was a shift that happened. I moved out to Boston 2015. I went to a bar. I wasn't huge into craft beer, so I ordered some like light domestic. The guy I was living with was so condescending about, you know, we're adults, we don't drink them. And I was like, oh, okay, that's how. So I figured I'd go down the beer rabbit hole so that would never happen again, you know. And I started going, you know, doing mix and match 6-packs. And I was keeping a list on my phone of everything I tried. I didn't know about Untappd at the time. And then, yeah, I was trying to see what breweries were in the area. I think Beer Advocate was kind of my main source at the time, and they had just done an article about Treehouse being Julius, their IPA was just voted like best IPA in the world. So I set a weekend aside to go out there. They're about an hour at that time in Monson. They were about an hour outside the city, and it was just a farm. So I showed up 30 minutes early. I'm like 30th in line at the time. So I figured maybe everyone else had just read the article or whatever, but there was a huge buzz that I just didn't even sense in the city. I got my limit, you know, I got a 750 growler of Treehouse Julius, and I pulled into a campground and I sat on a log and I drank it, and all the beers I'd had up till then they were kind of forgettable. I don't know how else to put it. It was just everything I liked, and the experience was so much more elevated than what I would have expected to have. So I'd also gotten into home brewing. I was brewing stuff like, you know, the first, you know, pale wheat ale, Scotch ale, stuff like that. And that also caused a shift. And I just wanted to try to brew something that tasted like that.
Right. Now, the beers that you make, obviously with your IPAs, do you feel like you're coming close to Treehouse, surpassing it?
No, I don't think anyone really, they can approach Treehouse maybe, but no one really does it like they do. But the closer you get, still it's a good beer. And so yeah, I guess we're getting closer. I'll put it that way. But I would never expect to make something like Julius. I don't know. It's very different still, even as their beers continue to trickle in and I try them. Just totally a unique house flavor that they pull off.
Well, what's kind of interesting about, Trilliums and the tree houses is that they, at least here in Michigan, I think they have a pretty big trade following that has come by, which of course kind of got sidelined a little bit once Old Nation started making M43 out here. And then it was like, what tree house? But you guys have been open for a bit. I think it was like June of 2018 when you guys opened.
Yep.
And, I try to keep up with breweries myself, but I wasn't really aware of Wax Wings until you guys started popping up in the trade circles, in the middle of last year, where there were people who were just in search of. And I'm like, wait a minute, where's Wax Wings? And then it like really woke me up, and I'm having this Pomona right now. And I'm like, what the hell was I waiting for? This shit is amazing.
That's the other part of the origin story is I really did on my own. I homebrewed, I tried, I spun my tires quite a bit. I mean, I was cooking, flipping burgers, doing fries. I was trying, doing everything we could, and we were still limping into the end of every month. And I had my son on the way, and I just didn't want to be on this roller coaster anymore, and I reached out. Aaron was actually a member and had wrote me just a long time back, this really nice email out of the blue, keep doing what you guys are doing. And I kind of knew what he had dabbled in. So I reached out through a mutual friend. And that's kind of the only reason we're at where we're at is through having someone like Aaron on board. Because I didn't know it until I saw it, what you would have to do to succeed. And especially when the pandemic hit. So she's kind of been the catalyst for all of that.
Nice. And I guess what I was going to add on to that was that, with the following and the greater following that's kind of gathering right now in the trade circles, people looking for proxies and things like that. I've seen, even just going to your website, that there are beers, especially stouts, because I am a stout fan, that your stouts are sold out. So I'm a little bummed about that. But that production looks like everything has just been selling out. So I guess where do you see it going throughout the rest of this year in terms of production and putting out these beers that everybody is starting to really gravitate and reach for?
Yeah, I think, and I'll pass this to Aaron because I know this is a good question for him, but in terms of selling out, so we brew about 100 gallons at a time. It's not an issue, but one of the things that happened on account of Aaron coming on and our wording, our whole presentation of the brand being more professional, is that we were treated like we were a larger corporation. I mean, we're 5 guys with homebrew equipment and modified. I mean, I showed Ken the setup. It's homemade, what we're doing this on. So selling out was never the goal. It's just kind of what happens when you make smaller quantities of beer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's like I said, it's definitely having its reach. One other thing that I was going to ask real quick is that in terms of, I was going through your Instagram page, which for everyone out there, you can follow that. Wax Wings Brewing is out there. There are quite a few pictures with some really good looking food. And, they go back, and it's like, obviously you haven't been able to serve in a while. I think the last one it was up there was like sometime like last November. Yeah. But I'm curious now, like looking at these pictures, what the food program is there and what you provide or what you plan to provide once you get back open in May.
That's a good question because in
terms of production.
So we had cooking equipment. So we could cook outside technically. The health department allowed it. We had a flat top and a fryer, and that's what we used to do all the stuff we did. In the course of that, spinning our tires with food, we purchased a food truck that sat until 3 weeks ago, half renovated. So we are going to get that up and running. We're excited to piece together a food program for the full pub experience, but the vision of what that will entail isn't clearly defined yet. some of the stuff we used to do, and we're going to try to work some new stuff in too.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to pass it off to Wendy. I believe she's got a question for you.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about a little bit more about the setup and stuff because I know I have a lot of friends in my beer groups that love your stuff. Trust me. So I was just a little curious as to if you have plans to expand or looking at distribution. I know I have a hard time getting it because I can't get all the way over there during the week.
Yeah, Aaron, you got this one.
Oh yeah. So what we've been trying to do and working really hard to do is to grow organically until the new brew house arrives. We've never wanted to get too big or too ahead of ourselves. We've always wanted to lay a really good foundation and keep building off of that. So our batches have continued to grow in size, and then going back to the sold out conversation, we've actually worked aggressively to go the opposite direction of a lot of breweries, which is where we try to set limits and everything to make the beer last as long as possible. It might garner you a lot of attention, but it's not a great feeling to bat your chest and say, oh, we sold out, because you're going to get a lot of angry emails and a lot of angry messages. It's a lot better feeling when a lot more people can try your beer. So yes, we are looking to expand. We want to do it in a smart way. We want to do it in a natural way. We just started doing some batches in a 7-barrel system. And we are hoping to do distribution, but not for everything that we make. We want to do a couple of our flagships to select stores and markets in Michigan to see if there's interest there, and also create a couple new flagships that would be introduced with that distribution, just so there's some new things out there as well.
So I am kind of new to your beer because, like I said, I'm on the other side of the state, so it's a little hard to get it sometimes. What do you consider your flagships?
I'd say like the Nazareth line, specifically pulled into Nazareth and Double Nazareth. Pursuit would be another one that I would think would be a flagship. I think those would be the two primary hoppy beers. Sometimes Thickerus, but more focus usually on Pursuit and Double Nazareth. And then we're working on a new recipe right now for something else that we're excited about down the road. That will be a new flagship beer.
I love to hear stuff like that. So what is one of the beers that you guys have made that just blew up in a way that you didn't expect?
Part of bringing Aaron on was he was more exposed to like the heavy fruit driven adjuncted sour type beers. And when we finally figured out how to get that fruit into suspension and how to properly adjunct those, the response to those was so unexpected, I guess, for me. Aaron probably saw that more coming, but one of them is like our Condor Valley line. So Condor Valley brunch, tangerine, blueberry waffles, and we're actually making waffles with we got like a waffle press from Meyer. We're putting waffles in the beer, and maple syrup. It tastes awesome. That one and another one called Stuffed French Toast, which somehow we did get to taste roughly like that. The response to those beers is, and it's tough because after that initial response, then you have to do it again at some point. And there's always, the readied expectations where does it measure up or not. But the kettle sour type thing was super unexpected for me, the response we got.
There is a T-shirt waiting to be made that says "Not as good as Batch 1," that I think every brewery can relate to.
That's fun. So, is there one that you have made that you thought, or that you really, really loved?
That we loved?
Yeah, I'm sure you love all of them, but is there one that?
No, the great part about I think most everyone who works there is a beer enthusiast. They probably traded beers at some point. There's been beers I don't love that maybe if I was left to my own devices, and I've dumped a ton of beer, but they've talked me out of it, and it's been better than I knew. but so yeah, there's certainly been beers I like that fell flat too. So it's tough. I don't always have the best pulse on that. But we love our hops. Those have always been near and dear to me, and the other styles that have evolved as we've learned more about how to brew them and execute them.
Speaking of
And I must say that we were also really excited about launching the lager program, and we really took our time with it. And just at least in-house, I don't know what the public response would be to it, but in-house, like it's just a beer that exceeded all of our expectations. So that was really exciting to dip into a more traditional style with like a twist of our own and have such a great result with the first batch.
We went through and we looked at your Untappd to see all the beers that you guys have currently on Untappd, and you're talking about your lager, the lager program being brand new because the trend that we see with you guys as well as we see it with a lot of other breweries is that you're pretty heavy on the stout, sour, and IPA variations of beer, and not it's not just IPA after IPA. You guys obviously do your own twists and have different doubles, triples, quintuple, lactose. I don't know.
There's no lactose in our IPA.
No lactose. That's right. There's no lactose. But why do you think, even with the current trend of light drinks that people love, like Dan's drinking his vodka soda, the seltzers, why do you think people still clamor for those three styles, which aren't necessarily the easiest of drinking?
There's a context for every drink, and the styles you called out, the context that we see those used in the most are beer shares. When you see check-ins, it's people going down the line in a night, they check in 20 beers at a share. So a lot of the stouts aren't, say we put them in a 750 milliliter bottle. I don't know, that's a tall task for anyone with some of those pastry stouts. But at a share in the right context, that's really where those are designed to shine. And that used to be the case for hops. I've noticed the trend more. Hops are now like palate cleansers between bigger stouts. So with the lager program, we were hoping to make something that could just be enjoyed, on your own and after work or whatever, like any context, but put our own spin on it to where it's not just one dimensional.
Well, I want to expand on that a little bit because you're talking. You mentioned Untappd a handful of times, and I'm always curious now that we have Rob. You're talking as more the brewer, and Aaron, you're talking more as like the idea person in front of the house type of work. Where do you see Untappd in today's market, and do you think that it's going to be a consistent thing in the future, or do you think it's going to kind of die down?
It will eventually, probably like all technology, reach a ceiling. Especially if it follows the trend of every single other type of social media. Nothing against it, but once parents get involved in stuff like that, then it becomes less cool to the kids that are using it. Once you see other age brackets and demographics, it just creates a natural looking for the next thing. I have seen just a lot of bashing of Untappd lately. There's a benefit to it, and there's also just a lot of harm to it. So it's just a weird double-edged sword technology. It's great for input, seeing if people are liking your stuff or not, and some people do take it very seriously what their review of beers are. But then at the same time, people will use it to try to hurt breweries. People will use it and just use some emoji, and it's hard to understand what the reception of a beer is when it's just a fire emoji.
Well, yeah. When you have a beer, and we went through, I dug through your Untappd reviews, and this was probably my favorite one. You guys did a beer in 2018 called Big Bend, and the review was not my style, 2.5 out of 5.
Oh, that's not. You know what? That's not even the worst.
Oh, I'm sure it's not the worst. You guys have like 100,000 check-ins, all right? It's hard to go through all of them.
The key with Untappd is you have to laugh at all of, like, you have to go into it ready to be self-deprecating and laugh at yourself, because it'll make you humble very quickly.
Well, were you guys at any point very keen on reading your reviews and seeing what people like, and almost took it personally when you would see a review like this, because you're like, whether it's why are you rating a beer that's not your style, or what's the context to help me out a little bit more, because you mentioned it's a double-edged sword, that it's a necessity, but you also say you got to laugh at it and laugh at yourself. Like, how do you find that balance?
The honest answer is that Aaron handles it much better than I do, and that's another reason why I struggled to 10 bar, because it's tough to make the beer, try to recommend this beer you're excited about to someone, and then have them like physically flinch away. It's too sweet, it's too hoppy, and
Too sour.
Yeah, there's not a lot of middle of the road stuff. So yeah, it's hard. Early on, it was very hard not to take personally. But there's strength in numbers. The more reviews that come in, the more you refine your processes and your product gets better. You start to get confident that, okay, our beer is probably pretty good. This person might just not have liked it based on the style or whatever. So,
and piggybacking on the concept of beer shares, one of the toughest things to see is working really hard on a beer and somebody judging it based on like a 2-ounce sample. Like I had 2 ounces of this IPA, and now I can pretty much clearly judge what this IPA is doing. It's tough to use that as a full barometer.
Pre-COVID, when you guys were open, you guys weren't doing flights at the brewery, correct?
That's actually, I was just going to say that. We stopped doing flights because people would down them like shots. Then they'd log in. Everything was like a 0.5. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. You know what I mean? They're giving this beer no time or consideration. And I just didn't think it presented well in a 2-ounce pour or 5-ounce, whatever it was. So, not to mention, it was hard when we're busy to pull off those flights. We only ever had one bartender. So we phased them out, and no one missed them really. We didn't get any complaints.
Well, I know Dan's got a question for you guys.
I do. So this comes in regards to your name here. When it makes me alert. Yeah, the name it. We're not going to go down there.
Dan,
I think a lot of us.
Dan, your internet connection's dropping out.
Oh no.
Start over.
Let's try it one more time.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh.
No?
One more time.
Hey, how's that?
All right.
So let me go back to that, if it's still going good. Your name, Swings, actually makes me think of an Iron Maiden song that's pretty popular from the 80s. Where did the name come from? A lot of us are kind of curious about that particular name.
For me personally, Wax Wings is kind of about taking a leap of faith and hoping that on the way down you'll figure it out. And that's exactly how it played out early on. I mean, as a home brewer, I maybe brewed 25-gallon batches of beer, and we got the New England type beer that I wanted really dialed in. And at that point, I flew down to meet with my uncle. We put together a business plan. I was so in over my head, and I didn't realize it. And at every failure, we had to readjust and figure it out. And it played out as I thought. So Wax Wings is kind of just a reference to that. That's kind of how I do stuff, unfortunately.
Awesome. And then we did have a listener question. Would you mind going into a bit about your barrel aging program? Kind of let us know what you're looking at in the future as far as that goes.
That was like a good question for you there.
Yeah, so we definitely have the barrel age program. Barrel aged beers are one of my biggest passion in terms of styles of beers. And it's something that Rob and I have worked really hard on. It is a style that we don't want to rush to market. We want to do it all correctly. We'll have something out here sooner rather than later as like our first little test. But the majority of our stuff is going to be quite long-term aged. We're pretty obsessed with seeing what we can get out of the barrel with no adjuncts, and then occasionally doing little side steps out of that with barrel character. But yeah, there's something coming soon, but at the same time, we're not going to be pumping it out. We don't have interest in that. We really want to take our time with it and do it correctly. And this first one that we have coming out is just kind of a mini test, and won't be fully indicative of what the full program is about.
The other part of that is not just with stouts. We want to put a focus on pulling more beer out of wood in general. So we did 2 this month. We had the Peach Sun Sprite, which was barrel aged as part of our Solera project. And we did the House of Earth, which actually it lagered within our walk-in inside of a red wine barrel for 2 months before we blended it. So that's kind of a point of emphasis moving forward for this year.
I don't think I'm gonna get to the House of Earth while or actually probably just crack it open and taste it before, because I was talking with Rob. I actually got a chance to go check out Wax Wings, a couple weeks ago, and I told him one thing, and Dan's gonna laugh, but as everyone who has been on the show and seen the show, I'm not a quitter when it comes to beer. If a beer is poured, I'm gonna drink it, for better or for worse. So he gave me a chance to try this lager out of the tank, I believe. Yeah. If not, this is a new beer that I get to try.
Yeah, we actually conditioned that because our tap room was at 55 to 60 degrees. So part of the krausening process, you introduce that wine barrel lagered beer to fresh fermenting beer, and then you put it in a pressurized vessel. That fresh fermenting beer carbonates it. So you control the blend, you control the ratio. And at that time, we had a party tap hooked up to sample on those kegs. It was about 55 degrees. And I actually really liked it at that temp.
Yeah, I as someone who's definitely following the trend of lighter beers and lagers and more, like I want something more crisp and easy to drink. This is definitely something, and a callback to a few weeks ago, this would be a shower beer for me. This would be something that I'd love to easily just, put it in the shower and, take a sip and have it as I'm cleaning up myself for the day. Uh I want to hit on a little bit more about what do wine barrels do to the beers themselves, because we always talk about a lot of bourbon barrel aged, rum barrel aged, but we don't hear too much about like wine barrel aging. Like, what does a wine barrel? What kind of characteristics am I supposed to see in this beer itself? And this is the House of Earth.
So yeah, certainly depends on the use of the barrel, if it's first use, second use, or where down the line. And in terms of if you want to pull those spirit characteristics out of it, or if you're just going for more of the toasty, rich oak. So this was a first use for this wine barrel. We swelled it with like 180-degree water, emptied it, and the smell coming out of it when it emptied was so good. Reminded me kind of like a bakery. And so a little bit of that carried over, some of the breadier notes in that lager. But something like a Solera project where you're emptying part of the wine barrel, then refilling it over a course of years, it doesn't take on as much of the flavor. So for House of Earth, we might consider how many uses we're trying to get out of this each barrel. And after the timeline where we don't think it's contributing what we want, then it becomes a sour barrel for our Sun Sprite program. So it's kind of just repurposing.
Now, your logo, I don't know if this is your logo or if, not logo, excuse me, but catchphrase, motto that we see on Untappd, it says, obsessed with freshness, unabashedly unfiltered. What you're laughing. What does that technically mean?
I think I was just, it's something that I had posted before Aaron came on board to refine it. But no, yeah, especially with lagers, I don't respond to a beer based on the appearance in terms of clarity. It's just, to me, it's taste that leaves the impression. So that was never a point of emphasis for me. And with these lagers, we're going to filter them with temperature and time. We're not going to take a actual filter. We don't have a centrifuge or anything like that. So the finished product is got to that point all through natural processes, and that's kind of been the point of emphasis. The freshness aspect, that really applies to the heavily adjuncted stuff and the hops. We want to get these hops in a can, in your glass, as fresh as possible. And yeah, that's kind of how that played out.
Rob, I know you got a question.
Yes, I do. So obviously, with being in the Kalamazoo area, I had been a slight 1-year resident in the area at Western Michigan. Shout out to Second Harvey Hall. Obviously, with the breweries that are in the area, with Bell's being the big dog, obviously you've got One Well, Latitude 42, and quite a few others that listeners can find on the My Beer Map app. Go ahead and grab that shit. It is absolutely free 99. But in building out the brewery and being in that area, what are some of the other local beers and brews that you've enjoyed outside of your own product?
In the area, we're actually really blessed in the Southwest area here of Michigan. Bell's is a big one for me, just because, I was going to college right around the early 2000s. My roommate was born and raised in Kalamazoo, so I had an awareness of Bell's that early on, and I went to U of M, so we used to go to Ashley's all the time, and that was like my big exposure to craft beers. Ashley's had a tap list unlike anybody else that I'd ever seen. So we're very blessed to have Bell's here, and that's one that I'll never say no to a Bell's beer. But at the same time, we have like a lot of cool breweries opening up north in Grand Rapids. We have Transient out there on the west side. We're so close to Chicago. That's another thing. It just goes on and on and on. It's hard to keep track sometimes of all the new breweries opening up.
Does it? I guess for like your, and then I guess kind of going back to Wax Wings and your beer, is that like I said earlier about seeing it being traded and going into other places. Have there been any trades or locations where you've seen your beer where you thought you've never reached it? It would never reach that far.
Yeah, I saw
every single one.
What? What was that?
I said every single one.
I saw a check-in for pulled into Nazareth in front of like a mountain range. I think it's like the Swiss Alps or something. That was wild. That was a couple of years ago. That's what's cool about Untappd is the check-in. They take a good picture where they're at. It's wild.
It's insanely flattering when you see all that stuff, like the trading and everything. And then there's a discomfort that comes with it too.
Is it a discomfort that you're seeing in other places, or that that it's not being enjoyed locally, or is it maybe that?
Oh no, not at
Oh,
all.
okay. Because there's also sometimes where, and I guess I will ask this question, is that there are some people who will purchase beers with the intent to sell and will sell it at 2, 3, 4 times the markup of what they paid for it. And I guess I'm curious now with you guys, is that something that bothers you when someone does that?
It's out of our hands. It's just the measuring stick is, when I said it's uncomfortable, is kind of the measuring stick of your worth versus somebody else's worth, is what kind of the uncomfortable part is. And for both parties, like, don't want to ever think that one beer is better than another. Like Rob said earlier, it's all about context. We don't lean towards wanting our beer to be a commodity or a currency. We want it to be enjoyed, but at the same time, we also understand that it's out of our hands, once it's sold. And that's why we try really hard, to have limits be at a point where it's spread out enough that those that want to enjoy it don't get shut out by people that are purely using it as a currency.
We appreciate that. As one of the people who love it.
All right, I'm going to pass that on to Nick. I believe he's got a question that's out in the chat right now.
Actually, Brandon in the chat must have been reading in my mind, because I was actually just thinking the same thing. Being that you're in Kazoo, a lot of breweries surrounding, just in Kazoo and then the surrounding area. Are there any potential for collaborations in the future, whether it be from a brewery in Kazoo or outside of Kazoo, or maybe even outside of the state? Any discussion about anything like that in the near future at all?
Well, our head brewer Adam Wisniewski is actually at some point, maybe in the next couple of years, opening a place called Deep End in Plainwell, and I don't know that we will be able to stop ourselves from collaborating pretty often with him. We're really going to miss him when that happens. And aside from that, one of my favorite places is the Distant Whistle in Vicksburg, and we collabed with them one time on like a West Coast type IPA, and Andy just works so hard over there. It's hard for him to get the time to line it up, but we're always texting ideas to each other. It's going to happen again at some point.
You know, we've had conversations with other breweries about doing collabs out of state and in state. One of the tough things about talking about collabs is there's like an excitement level when you get to announce it. So you don't ever want to ruin that component of it, you know, or tip the hand for the other brewery if they're not ready to discuss it yet.
Yep. I actually just saw a collab announcement I think it was earlier today, and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty, but I'm sure that's always hard to contain and always try to, keep the excitement at bay until you're ready to announce it. I'm sure that's always a challenge. Actually, I see Adam. You mentioned Adam a minute ago. He's actually in the chat. He actually did those couple things in the chat, so he is watching right now, or at least listening.
Typing out the IPA origin story?
No, he did a pair of emojis like this with a crown. So.
He rated your beer 1 out of 5 and did two of these with the crown. So I don't know.
Like somebody would do.
I don't know what it means. Is there an opportunity that you guys, with hopefully as you continue with your curbside and your carry out and your takeout, to grow even further into a bigger system? Because obviously you're going to be worrying about not only filling your taps, but filling your to-go and potentially filling maybe bars locally around the area that want your beer. What are the chances of you guys buying new equipment?
Well, that's already in the works.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, we've already started to do some batches on a much bigger system, and we have a bigger system forthcoming to that as well. But like I said, our focus has always been not getting ahead of ourselves and trying to do it organically and naturally.
Well, as we're going to be kind of winding down, ending this interview, everyone will ask their final question, but I kind of want to ask this one, going back a little bit towards the the heavy stout IPA sour. Is there a style that you guys, sans the lager program that you're doing, a style that you guys or you really want to brew? It could be selfish, something for you personally. A Bourbon County clone.
The BA program is really a dream come true. It's not only great to work on it with Rob, but to have so much passion into something and watch that grow. And it's such a long-term program. It's going to be so much fun to see the results of that, because we have a lot of stuff planned for it, and we get a little excited like kids on Christmas every once in a while. And we're like, oh, let's see how that one's tasting. Let's see what's going on with that one. And we've been really excited with the results. So other beers too. That it's all about, for me, excitement is that barrel aging program and other styles that we can put into the barrels as well.
I had the opportunity, obviously, to get to know Rob a little bit more personable when I was out there and trying beers, and we discussed about this kind of topic, brewing what you love versus brewing what the masses want. But that same question kind of goes to you, Rob. Is there a beer or a style that you really want to hit sometime soon that really speaks to what you love in beer? Because I know you're an IPA guy, and I think you have a good handle on those IPAs. But what about a different style?
We're pursuing so many different beers right now that take us out of our comfort zone.
I don't want the company line. I want you. What do you want?
Oh, I'm getting into it. I was getting into it.
Okay.
And, so, especially with the lager program, we have a lot of stuff happening. What I'm looking forward to is failing on a beer, dumping it, trying it again, learning something from it that's applicable to all the other styles that we never knew existed. And that's kind of where we're at. We're gonna do different, I guess, hypeless styles and do our own spin on them. And hope that we've built enough trust with our customer base. Like, you guys have enjoyed this. We put the same effort towards this, and we hope you like that too. And with the first release of House of Earth, it really went much better than I thought. I was so nervous to release that, but it's hard to be pigeonholed as a hype brewery all the time when you really do want to pursue these other styles, but you feel like you can't lean fully into them and still keep the lights on, because there's so many different breweries. So what's an example of one? We just brewed a dark lager. What we're going to do to it is the interesting part to me, the rest of the process. After that, we're going to do like a Baltic porter. We have plans for a Belgian triple, and the lagers aren't going to stop either. I think we were talking about an ESB when you came that we'd put into a barrel. I mean, there's stuff like that that's going to happen, and it's because all the people are passionate about those styles, and they're not getting turns on the brew house right now.
All right. Well, what we're going to do is, as we kind of end the show, everyone's going to ask a final question, and then we'll give you guys a chance to tell everyone where you are, what your hours are for right now for curbside, how to order beer online, so you don't just show up out of the blue like me and be like, oh, crap. So we'll start with Wendy. Never prepared when I call on her.
I'm never prepared. I don't understand. We've been doing this a year now.
Yeah, always calls me
and I'm
first.
still. So I'm gonna actually defer my last question to one of the chat questions. Gary wants to know, as you get bigger, will you go to Eventbrite or is it OZNR? I don't even know what that is. For releases.
I don't know that we're at that level right now. Eventbrite, possibly, for like the barrel age stuff where it's more limited to create, parity and fairness for everybody to get it. But yeah, I definitely don't see us at that level right now where we need to use like an exclusive ticket site like Osner, Eventbrite for our stuff.
I tell you what, the faith of your consumers and fans believe you are near there. Robert.
All right, very simple. To seller or to not seller?
I don't believe in cellaring anything.
What year is that Bourbon County?
2020.
Okay.
I mean, I definitely, for myself, I screwed up a little bit because I had a Wolverine Massacre, their barrel-aged dark lager, and realized that I had one from 2016 sitting in the back. Yep. So I was like, oh, I better drink this. And then had a 2020 on the side of it and just was like, yeah, don't do this again. This needs to be drank when it's made.
And what happens with cellaring is you get into that position where all of a sudden there's a backwoods bastard there from like 2014. And you're like, come on. That was a good beer at the time.
Oh, Rob, you're just making me really, really nervous right now when you said that you found a Massacre from 16, because I think I got one that from not as old, but pretty close. So
I think I still have a 15. Now that I think about it, I got to go down.
Lord, Rob.
Yeah, I know.
I'll have to go to my basement and look now.
I just forgot. So.
Well, Nick, what's your final question?
I always like to end with this one. Your guilty pleasure beer that's in your fridge right now that is not Wax Wings. What is it for both of you?
Hams.
That was probably the best.
A guilty pleasure. I actually just love Oberon.
No, I don't think that's a guilty pleasure. I think it's a great beer.
Yeah, I think so too.
Are you serious about hams though?
Oh, I love a good ham.
Oh, geez.
What's not to love?
It's your guilty pleasure.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Nick, no judging. This is a judgment-free zone.
Wait, look at the shirt. You can't see it because of the damn chair.
We're the Planet Fitness of craft beer podcast.
Yeah. And Aaron, what's yours?
It's tough. Two Hearted is a go-to. But that's not considered a guilty pleasure. I have no, e-network style of beer that I drink. Two Hearted is a go-to for me. That's just one that It's never disappointed me. Just like BCBS on Fridays, it's a beer that never lets me down. So if I'm
Nice.
going to stick with it.
Well,
There you
speaking of
go.
letting me down, Dan, what's your final question?
Yeah, save it for last, of course. So, anyways, going back to the barrel aged program, would you ever consider making a barrel aged malt liquor? And if so, what do we have to do to make that happen soon?
No.
Everyone
Hold
was
on,
just
hold
like,
on,
what?
hold on. You guys are
I think that's
laughing,
just a
but
no.
Founders did it. Rochester Mills
Yeah.
did it. I mean, this isn't a
Oh,
crazy
sure, it happens,
idea.
right?
Oh, as the great and wise mystical would say, I'm about it. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Did you honestly just go No Limit Records just now, Rob?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
I think that
man.
we could figure out a way to put our spin on it if we ever wanted to do it.
If it came down to it, I think we'd make a pretty good one.
Yeah.
I'm sure
We
it
have
would.
to do a little bit more market research.
I would gladly make the drive and then stop over at Bilbo's for some Hobbit sticks, without a doubt.
Oh, dill dip.
You need
Damn it,
quite a
Rob.
bit to absorb after that.
Gary in the chat says Smutty Nose did one. I mean, I feel like a barrel aged malt liquor is one of those where it catches your eye. You read the rest of the beers and you're like, wait a minute, did I see barrel aged malt liquor? And it's almost like a style that now you have to try because you have these ideas of barrel aged beers in your head, these ideas of malt liquor, and of course, all you think of is King Cobra or E40 or all these random malt liquors that just in your head buried from college days. So I feel like
It could actually be traumatic to pursue that based on the experiences I had drinking those beers you just named. I don't know if I could do that. Have to
But
read
it does go back to something that I always talk to Rob about is I feel that we should never lose sight of the fact that beer should be fun.
Yeah.
In pursuing those experiments and doing crazy things, that's what keeps the industry alive. Because it might be a failure, but it might lead to something else. That people can respect and admire.
Rob, I think you have your new Untappd motto that you need to change it to is beer should be fun. And
Yeah, that's what I said. I made it before Aaron came on board. It needed some refining.
That's going to do it. Better on Draft Podcast, the Michigan Series number 10. Wax Wings, you guys are curbside only. Why don't you tell us how people can find you guys, how people can order, how people can pick up, put us through that story, or that's, process.
We're on both Facebook and Instagram. We pre-announce all of our new beers. We used to do one giant release at a time every week, but some people would want like the IPAs fresh. So we've now moved to a model where as soon as it's packaged, we put it out there. And then we allow a pickup window of 11 days so that people can accumulate the beer and not feel like they have to come out for every single release. And then all the details of those releases, including the site where you can order it, limits, etc., all that stuff is on Facebook and Instagram for every single beer. And then our pickup hours are 4 to 6, Tuesday through Friday, and then 12 to 3 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. And we're closed on Mondays.
I just want to say a special thanks to Adam Wisniewski, young Broderick Try, and Eddie Reyes. Hope you feel better, brother. Happy to be on this with Aaron tonight.
Guys, we appreciate you can find Wax Wings on the Michigan Brewery Map app, mibeermap.com. It's a free app. I made it to help all Michigan beer fans find breweries. So I want you guys to use it, find your breweries, make it a trip out there. They're Kalamazoo. The last time I went, I hit up One Well, I hit up American Breweries Inc., so Norris, oh God, Tom's going to kill me. Norris Nectar, I believe is the name of the place. City Union, Valhalla is what they call it over there. So download the app, check it out, find all the breweries in the state, all the upcoming breweries like Deep End, which is on the map. It's going to tell you that where it's coming. It won't tell you when it's going to open because we just don't know yet. But that's going to do it. Better on Draft Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Better on Draft. Untappd. Find out all the beers we drank tonight on Bod Podcast. And of course, you can listen to us live Fridays, 7 p.m. Eastern, betterondraft.tv, or facebook.com/betterondraft, youtube.com/betterondraft, or twitch.tv/Bod Podcast. My name is Ken. For my host, thank you so much for joining. Wax Wings, thank you so much for joining. No matter what you think of your beer, we think it's Better on Draft. Have a good night.
Shout out to North Center in Zatuna. Get those Bilbo